The great chamber floated in the darkness of space, its crystal walls glowing with soft blue light. Inside, representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in rows that curved around a central platform. This was the Galactic Hegemony Council, the most powerful organization in the known galaxy. Today, they were about to make what they thought was a simple decision. Ambassador Zeth Prime stood at the center of the chamber. His tall, thin body swayed slightly as he activated the holographic display. The image of a small blue and green planet appeared above his head, slowly turning in the artificial light. "Council members," Zeth Prime said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's speakers, "I present to you planet designation Terra 3, located in the Outer Rim sector. 7 Alpha, the local inhabitants call it Earth." Murmurs filled the chamber as the representatives studied the planet. It looked pleasant enough with swirling white clouds and vast blue oceans. Green and brown continents were visible beneath the atmospheric layer. "What do we know about the inhabitants?" asked Counselor Vrex, her 6 arms folding across her chest. As the representative of the Mandorian Shock Corps, she was always interested in potential military challenges. Zeth Prime touched a control, and the image changed to show crude spacecraft. The ships looked primitive, with chemical rockets and basic metal construction. The species calls itself humans. They have achieved basic spaceflight, but their technology is extremely limited. Their most advanced vessels can barely reach their own planetary satellite. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Several representatives made jokes about species that still use chemical propulsion. The Vorthan Empire had abandoned such primitive methods over 10,000 years ago. Their weapon systems? Counselor Vrex pressed. "Nuclear fission devices," Zeth Prime replied. "Crude, but they seem quite proud of them." "They're most powerful. Weapons would barely scratch the hull of our smallest scout ship." More laughter. Nuclear weapons were considered toys by most council species. The Xerathi Dominion had stopped using them as training exercises because they were not destructive enough to provide proper practice. Counselor Keth of the Krillian swarms leaned forward in his seat. His insect-like features gleamed under the chamber lights. "What about their military organization?" "Divided into several hundred separate political units," Zeth Prime said. "They fight among themselves constantly. Their largest wars involve primitive projectile weapons and chemical explosives. Intelligence suggests they would be unable to mount any unified resistance." The chamber fell quiet as the representatives considered this information. A divided species with primitive weapons and no unified command structure. It was the kind of easy conquest that younger council members often used to prove themselves. "Resources?" asked Treasurer Voth, always concerned with the practical benefits of expansion. Zeth Prime smiled, his sharp teeth glinting. "Excellent. The planet has vast water reserves, multiple climate zones suitable for various council species, and significant mineral deposits. Our preliminary scans show rare earth elements in abundance. The system also contains several other worlds that could serve as mining operations or military bases." Nods of approval filled the chamber. Water was always valuable, and rarer earth elements were essential for advanced technology production. The system would be a profitable addition to Council. "Territory, population estimates?" Counselor Vrex asked. "Approximately 7 billion individuals," Zeth Prime replied. "Standard pacification protocols should be sufficient. Our sociologists estimate 95% compliance within 72 hours of initial contact." This was music to the Council's ears. Standard pacification protocols were simple and efficient. A show of overwhelming force, destruction of key military installations, and clear demands for surrender. Most primitive species submitted quickly when faced with technology they could not comprehend. "I motion for immediate territorial claim," Counselor Keth announced. "The Krillian swarms volunteer for the honor of bringing this system into council control." Several other representatives immediately objected. The Draconian fleet wanted the glory. The Xerathi Dominion claimed their biopacification methods would be more efficient. Even the usually peaceful, ethereal collective suggested they could handle the matter through diplomatic channels. SCI-FI Prime raised his hand for silence. The Council appreciates all offers of service. However, initial intelligence gathering was conducted by Vorthan Empire vessels. The Krillian swarms have an excellent record with primitive species pacification. I believe they are the logical choice. The debate that followed was brief and civilized. The Krillians had indeed handled several similar operations in recent decades. Their methods were efficient and cost-effective. More importantly, they had requested only minimal support from other council members. "The motion is called for vote," announced Chancellor Thrix, the council's ancient leader. "All in favor of granting territorial rights to the Krillian swarms for System Terra 3. Hundreds of lights blinked green across the chamber. A few yellow lights indicated abstentions, mostly from species who had wanted the job themselves. Number. Red lights appeared. "Motion carried," Chancellor Thrix declared. "Councillor Keth, you have authorization to proceed with standard pacification protocols." Estimated timeline? Councillor Keth's compound eyes glittered with satisfaction. "We can have a fleet in position within 2 local days. Pacification should be complete within 1 local week. Full territorial control within 1 local month." "Excellent," the Chancellor said. "Please submit regular reports to the Council. Are there any other matters requiring immediate attention?" The discussion moved on to trade disputes and resource allocation arguments. The matter of the small blue planet seemed settled. Another primitive world would join the thousands already under Council control. The representatives were already thinking about lunch and their afternoon meetings. But they had made a mistake, several mistakes actually. The first mistake was assuming that primitive technology meant primitive thinking. The Council's databases contained detailed information about weapons, ships, and industrial capacity. They had perfect records of human nuclear arsenals, chemical rockets, and steel production. What they did not have was any real understanding of human psychology. The second mistake was thinking that divided politics meant inability to cooperate. The Council had observed human conflicts and concluded that the species was too fractured to present unified resistance. They failed to understand that humans had a strange habit of putting aside their differences when faced with external threats. The third mistake was assuming that crude weapons meant crude tactics. The Council evaluated military threats based on technological capability. They measured laser output, plasma efficiency, and shield strength. They did not account for creativity, desperation, or the human tendency to weaponize absolutely everything. The fourth and most serious mistake was thinking that humans would fight like other species the Council had encountered. Previous pacification operations had followed predictable patterns. Show overwhelming force, demand surrender, accept submission, establish control. The Council had never encountered a species that would spend 3 days reverse engineering alien technology while their cities burned around them. On Earth, astronomer Dr. Sarah Chun was finishing her night shift at the Arecibo Observatory. She had been tracking unusual gravitational anomalies for the past week. The readings made no sense according to conventional physics. Objects were moving toward the solar system at impossible speeds, then suddenly decelerating in ways that violated everything humanity knew about space travel. "Hey, Mike," she called to her colleague. "Come look at this data again. I think our equipment is malfunctioning." Dr. Mike Rodriguez walked over to her station, coffee mug in hand. He studied the screen for several minutes, frowning at the numbers. "The readings are consistent across all our instruments. Either we have simultaneous failures in completely different systems, or something very large is heading our way." "How large?" Sarah asked. Mike ran some quick calculations. "Based on the gravitational effects? I'd say at least 200 objects, each roughly the size of a cruise ship, maybe bigger." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "Natural phenomenon?" "Not unless physics textbooks need major revisions," Mike said grimly. "These things are under intelligent control? They're following precise flight paths and coordinated maneuvers." Neither scientist wanted to say what they were both thinking. The objects were clearly artificial. They were clearly coming from outside the solar system, and they were clearly heading directly for Earth. In 12 hours, the Krillian fleet would drop out of hyperspace and announce their intentions to the primitive inhabitants of Terra 3. They expected quick submission, easy victory, and commendations from the Council. They were about to learn that humans had very different ideas about how first contact should proceed. The Council's simple decision was about to become their worst nightmare. The Krillian fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of metallic wasps. 200 ships materialized in Earth's orbital space, their dark hulls gleaming with alien technology. Each vessel was the size of a city block, bristling with weapons that could level mountains. Fleet Commander Zakthal stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the primitive blue world rotate slowly below. His 4 arms worked the control stations with practiced efficiency. This would be his 15th pacification mission, and he expected it to be as routine as all the others. Communications, open broadcast channels to the planet's surface, he ordered. His translator would convert his words into the local language automatically. Inhabitants of Terra 3, his voice boomed across every radio and television frequency on Earth. I am Fleet Commander Zakthal of the Krillian Swarms, acting under authority of the Galactic Hegemony Council. Your world is now claimed territory of the Council. Surrender immediately and you will be treated fairly under Council law. Resist and face the consequences. The response was immediate and completely unexpected instead of panicked broadcasts. Begging for mercy, the airwaves filled with chatter in dozens of different languages. Military communications networks that had been silent moments before suddenly burst into activity. Radar stations that had been tracking civilian aircraft swiveled toward space. Sir, reported his sensor officer, the planet's military forces are mobilizing, all of them, simultaneously. Zakthal's compound eyes focused on the tactical display. Red dots were appearing across the planet's surface as human military bases activated. The pattern made no sense according to Council intelligence. The species was supposed to be divided into competing factions. Are they responding to our communication? He asked. Unknown, sir. They seem to be coordinating their response across all political boundaries. We are detecting communication traffic between military units that our intelligence said were enemies. This was unusual, but not alarming. Sometimes primitive species attempted futile shows of unity when faced with superior force. It typically made the pacification process faster, since there were fewer separate surrenders to negotiate. Target their military installations, Zakthal ordered. Standard demonstration pattern? Destroy enough to show our power, but leave infrastructure intact for later use? The first salvo was precise and devastating. Plasma beams lanced down from the fleet, striking major military bases on 6 continents. The ancient installations of NORAD in North America, the Kremlin in Russia, and the Pentagon in the United States vanished in brilliant flashes of superheated gas, but something was wrong. Instead of the expected chaos and surrender, the human military response became more organized. Communication networks rerouted around damaged nodes. Backup command centers activated immediately. Mobile missile launchers that had been hidden in forests and mountains began moving toward firing positions. Sir, the sensor officer said, his voice uncertain, they are launching projectiles at our fleet. Zakthal checked his screens and almost laughed. Primitive chemical rockets were climbing slowly toward his ships, trailing fire and smoke. The crude missiles would take several minutes to reach orbital altitude, and his point defense systems could destroy thousands of them without effort. Ignore them, he said. Continue targeting military installations. The second wave of plasma strikes hit airbases in Europe and Asia. Fighter jets that had been scrambling for takeoff disappeared in balls of flame. Naval bases erupted as alien. Energy tore through steel and concrete like paper, but again, the human response was not what the Krillians expected. Instead of panic, there was adaptation. Human forces began spreading out, abandoning large bases in favor of smaller, mobile units. Military equipment that had been stored in obvious locations suddenly vanished into urban areas and wilderness. Sir, the communications officer reported. "We are receiving transmissions from the surface. Multiple languages, but our translators are working." "Put them through," Zachthal ordered. The bridge speakers crackled with voices from around the planet. American generals, Chinese admirals, Russian commanders, and military leaders from dozens of smaller nations. But they were not begging for mercy or negotiating surrender terms. They were sharing information. Tactical data about alien weapon signatures, shield frequencies, and ship movements flowed between militaries that had been enemies hours before. The humans were analyzing his fleet in real time and distributing the results globally. "Commander," the sensor officer said urgently, "the primitive missiles are approaching our perimeter. Should I activate point defenses?" "Yes, of course," Zachthal replied absently. He was more interested in the strange coordination happening on the planet. Below. The first wave of human missiles reached the Krillian fleet and died exactly as expected. Point defense lasers swatted them from space like insects. But Zachthal noticed something odd about the attack pattern. The missiles had not been aimed to maximize damage. They had been spread out, approaching from different angles, almost as if the humans were testing his defenses rather than trying to win. "Sir," the weapons officer called out, "I am reading energy buildup in the planet's industrial centers. Power consumption is increasing rapidly in manufacturing zones." Before Zachthal could respond, proximity alarms began screaming. One of his destroyers, the Talon of Krex, had suffered a catastrophic explosion. The ship was breaking apart, venting atmosphere and debris into space. "What happened?" Zachthal demanded. "Unknown, sir." The ship reported a minor collision with space debris, then lost all communications. Debris analysis suggests. "Sir, this is impossible. Report!" The debris contains human technology. Primitive chemical explosives, but the detonation pattern suggests they were placed strategically inside our hull. Zachthal stared at the tactical display. A human ship had somehow approached close enough to attach explosives to a Krillian destroyer. That should have been impossible. Human spacecraft were crude chemical rockets that could barely reach their own moon. "Sir, incoming transmission from Scout Wing 7, the communications officer announced. "Put it through." The voice that came through the speakers was strained and panicked. "Fleet Command, this is Scout Leader Vorth. We are under attack by human spacecraft. Repeat, human spacecraft are engaging us with weapons fire." "Impossible," Zachthal said. "Human ships cannot reach orbital altitude with significant payload." "Sir, they modified their spacecraft. They are using our own power cells as explosive devices. They attached chemical rockets to cargo vessels and launched ramming attacks. One of them just flew directly into scout ship Razor Wind. Both ships are destroyed." The tactical display updated to show 3 more Krillian ships damaged or destroyed. Each had been hit by modified human spacecraft that should not have been capable of orbital combat. The humans had taken technology from the first ships they had destroyed and were already using it against the fleet. "How long since first contact?" Zachthal asked. 4 hours, 17 minutes, sir." 4 hours. In less than 5 hours, this primitive species had analyzed alien technology, reverse-engineered power systems, and mounted successful counterattacks against a superior space fleet. The Council intelligence files had not mentioned anything about this level of technological adaptation. "Sir," the sensor officer said, "we have a bigger problem. Human forces are recovering wreckage from our damaged ships. They are stripping technology and moving it to protected locations." On the planet below, teams of human engineers worked frantically around crashed alien debris. They cut apart hull plating with industrial tools, extracted computer cores with welding equipment, and pulled power cells free with construction cranes. Military trucks carried the salvaged technology to hidden facilities where scientists and engineers waited. Dr. Jennifer Walsh had been working on experimental propulsion systems at NASA when the invasion began. Now she stood in an underground bunker in Colorado, staring at a power cell the size of a briefcase that produced more energy than a nuclear reactor. "Can we use it?" asked General Morrison, the base commander. "Oh, we can definitely use it," Dr. Walsh replied. The question is how fast we can build delivery systems. This thing puts out enough power to run our entire facility for a month. If we can figure out the control system, how long? The general pressed. Give me 12 hours, she said. Maybe less if the team in Berlin shares their data. Around the world, similar scenes played out in dozens of hidden facilities. Human engineers worked with desperate creativity, combining alien technology with their own industrial capability. They could not build ships like the Krillians, but they could build weapons that used Krillian power sources. Back in orbit, Fleet Commander Zach Thull watched his tactical situation deteriorate by the hour. His fleet was taking steady losses from increasingly sophisticated human attacks. Suicide runs by modified spacecraft, improvised weapons using Krillian technology, and coordinated strikes that showed detailed knowledge of alien ship weaknesses. "Sir," the communications officer said, "we are receiving another transmission." "From the surface." "It appears to be from their military leadership. Put it through." The voice was calm and professional, speaking in the language called English. "This is General Patricia Hayes, acting as spokesperson for the United Earth Defense Force, Fleet Commander. We offer you one opportunity to withdraw from our system peacefully." Zach Thull was so surprised he forgot to check his translator. "You are demanding our surrender?" "No, Commander. We are offering you safe passage to leave. You have already lost 6 ships and counting. Our industrial capacity is increasing exponentially as we integrate your technology. Every hour you remain makes your situation worse." "Impossible. You are a primitive species with chemical rockets and nuclear weapons." "We were," General Hayes agreed. "That was this morning. This is this evening. We learn quickly." As if to emphasize her point, warning alarms sounded throughout the flagship. The tactical display showed multiple human spacecraft approaching at high speed. But these were not the crude chemical rockets from the morning attacks. These ships moved with the smooth acceleration curves of gravitic drive systems. "Sir," the sensor officer whispered, "those ships are using our own propulsion technology." The human ships opened fire with weapons that produced familiar energy signatures: plasma cannons, molecular disruptors, and gravitic mines. All Krillian technology, mounted on human-built spacecraft and operated by human crews who had learned to use them in less than 8 hours. Fleet Commander Zach Thull looked at his displays and felt something he had never experienced in 15 pacification missions. He felt afraid. "Communications, open a channel to Council Command," he ordered. "Request immediate reinforcements." "Full battle fleet." "Sir, what should I tell them about the resistance level?" Zach Thull watched another of his ships explode under fire from weapons that had been Krillian property that morning. "Tell them," he said slowly, "that the Council intelligence files were incomplete." 6 months had passed since the first Krillian ships arrived at Earth. What should have been a simple 3-day conquest had become a nightmare that kept the Galactic Council awake at night. Fleet Commander Zach Thull's requests for reinforcements had grown increasingly desperate with each passing week. The Council chamber buzzed with worried conversations as representatives reviewed the latest reports from the Sol system. Chancellor Thrix called for order, his ancient voice carrying the weight of thousands of years of galactic politics. "The chair recognizes Councillor Zirith of the Zirithi Dominion," he announced. "COUNCILOO." Zirith rose from her seat, her reptilian features gleaming under the chamber lights. The Zirithi were known throughout the galaxy as the masters of biological warfare. Their custom-designed plagues had brought entire star systems to their knees without firing a single shot. "Honored colleagues," she said, her voice smooth and confident, "the Krillian approach has clearly failed. Brute force cannot overcome a species that adapts so quickly to conventional weapons. The Zirithi Dominion offers a more elegant solution." She activated a holographic display showing microscopic organisms. "We have developed a series of biological agents specifically designed for human physiology. These pathogens will disable their industrial capacity while leaving infrastructure intact. Clean, efficient, and permanent." Murmurs of approval filled the chamber. Biological warfare was considered more civilized than orbital bombardment. It preserved valuable resources while eliminating resistance. How long for deployment? Asked Counselor Keth. The Krillian commander looked exhausted. His once pristine uniform was torn and stained from months of combat stress. Our bioships can reach the system within 2 local days, Zereth replied. Full deployment across the human population centers within 6 hours. Complete societal collapse within 72 hours. Acceptable, Chancellor Thrix declared. Authorization. Granted. May this finally end the embarrassment in Sector 7 Alpha. The Zerathi bio-fleet was a thing of beauty and terror. 20 ships that looked more grown than built, their organic hulls pulsing with internal life. Each vessel carried billions of precisely engineered organisms designed to target human DNA, human nervous systems, and human immune responses. Bio Admiral Seth commanded the fleet from his flagship, a massive vessel that resembled a floating garden of death. His species had perfected biological warfare over millennia. They had never encountered a target they could not eliminate with the right pathogen. Begin dispersal over major population centers, he ordered as his fleet reached Earth orbit. Pattern Omega-7. Full species saturation. The bioweapons fell like invisible rain over Earth cities. London, New York, Tokyo, Moscow, Beijing, Delhi, and dozens of other metropolitan areas were bathed in carefully designed death. The pathogens were works of art, engineered to be undetectable until they had spread through entire populations. For 3 days, the Zerathi waited for reports of mass casualties. Their sensors monitored human communication networks, expecting to detect the collapse of organized resistance. Instead, they detected something that made Bio Admiral Seth question his own instruments. Report, he commanded his science officer. Sir, the human population appears to be adapting. Their immune systems are not responding as predicted. Instead of succumbing to our pathogens, they seem to be developing resistance. Impossible. Our bioweapons are specifically engineered for their physiology? Yes, sir, but the humans are modifying the pathogens. They are using our own organisms as the basis for counterweapons. Bio Admiral Seth stared at his displays in growing horror. The humans had not just survived the biological attack. They had captured samples of Zerathi pathogens and were reverse engineering them in real time. Worse, they were using Zerathi biotechnology to create new weapons. Dr. Maria Santos had been working on genetic research at the University of São Paulo when the alien plague hit her city. Instead of running or hiding, she had volunteered for the emergency response team studying the mysterious illness that should have killed millions but somehow had not. The organism is incredibly sophisticated, she told her international colleagues via encrypted video conference. It is designed to attack human cellular structure, but there is something strange about its behavior. Dr. James Chun, calling in from a bunker beneath Beijing, leaned forward in his video feed. Strange how? It seems to have adaptive protocols built into its genetic structure, almost like it is designed to learn from resistance and modify itself accordingly. That would explain why our immune systems adapted so quickly, said Dr. Elena Petrov from Moscow. Our bodies treated it like a training exercise rather than an attack. The revelation had staggering implications. The alien biological weapons were not just sophisticated. They were educational. Human immune systems had learned from them, becoming stronger and more adaptable. But more importantly, human scientists were learning from them too. We can use this, Dr. Santos said quietly. If we can understand how their organisms adapt and learn, we can create our own versions. Within a week, human laboratories around the world were producing biological weapons that made Zerathi pathogens look primitive. The key was not just copying alien technology, but improving it with human creativity and complete disregard for conventional limitations. The first sign of trouble for the Zerathi fleet came when their own biosensors detected familiar organisms in Earth's atmosphere. But these were not the pathogens they had released. These were modified versions, enhanced and weaponized in ways that violated several galactic conventions on biological warfare. Sir, the science officer reported, his voice shaking. The humans have released counter-organisms into our fleet's life support systems. What kind of organisms? Modified versions of our own pathogens, sir. But they have been altered to target scifi physiology instead of human. Bio-Admiral Seth felt something cold crawl up his spine. How is that possible? They have no knowledge of our biology? Sir, we have been broadcasting biological data for months. Every weapon we deployed carried information about our own cellular structure. The humans used that data to reverse engineer weapons specifically designed to kill us. The scifi bioships began dying from the inside out. Their organic hulls, designed to be living ecosystems, became battlegrounds for microscopic warfare. Human-modified pathogens spread through the ship's life support systems, attacking the very biological foundations that kept the vessels alive. But the horror was not limited to space combat. Reports began arriving from other parts of human space that made the Council question what kind of species they were fighting. Captain Vex of the Krillian Raider Bone Crusher had been leading hit-and-run attacks on human supply convoys for 3 months. It was dangerous work, but profitable. Human cargo ships were lightly defended and carried valuable technology. Today's target was a human freighter traveling between Earth and Mars. The ship appeared to be carrying standard industrial equipment, nothing special. Vex ordered his crew to prepare for boarding. Standard intimidation protocol, he told his warriors. Minimal casualties, maximum compliance, we want the cargo intact. The boarding went smoothly at first. Vex's heavily armed warriors cut through the freighter's hull and stormed the cargo bay. But something was wrong. Instead of terrified civilian crew members, they found human soldiers waiting for them. These were not the desperate defenders Vex had fought before. These humans moved with predatory grace, their equipment a mixture of alien and human technology. That made them look like armored demons. Worse, they seemed to know exactly how Krillian boarding tactics worked. It is a trap, Vex realized, but too late. The humans had not been running supply missions. They had been hunting Krillian raiders, using fake cargo ships as bait. When Vex's warriors tried to retreat to their ship, they found human soldiers already aboard the Bone Crusher, methodically capturing his crew. The humans did not kill their prisoners. That would have been merciful. Instead, they took them to facilities that made even veteran Krillian warriors break down in terror. The humans called it intelligence gathering. The techniques they used had never been seen in civilized warfare. Commander, Yex of the Draconian Fleet received reports from 17 different raiding parties, all with the same pattern. Human cargo ships that were actually military vessels in disguise. Human soldiers who fought with equipment that combined the best features of multiple alien technologies. Human interrogation methods that extracted information with horrifying efficiency. They are not just defending themselves, Commander Yex reported to his superiors. They are hunting us. They have turned our own tactics against us, and they are better at it than we are. The worst reports came from the edges of Council space, where human raiding parties had begun attacking alien supply lines. These were not desperate defensive actions. These were carefully planned offensive operations that demonstrated detailed knowledge of Council military protocols. The humans had captured enough alien ships to build their own hybrid fleet. Their vessels combined human industrial capability with alien technology, creating warships that were both familiar and terrifying. More disturbing, they were recruiting crew members from other Council species, not through conquest or coercion. Through ideology, human propaganda broadcasts had begun appearing on alien communication networks throughout Council space. The messages were simple and direct. They spoke of freedom from Council taxation, freedom from arbitrary territorial claims, and freedom from species-based discrimination. Join us, the broadcast said. We judge beings by their actions, not their biology. We welcome any species that values liberty over submission. Some aliens were listening. Desertion rates in Council fleets began climbing as individual crew. Members decided that the human cause was more appealing than continued service to the Council hierarchy. Bio Admiral Seeth's final report to the Xerathi Dominion was brief and terrifying. His entire biofleet had been destroyed or captured. The humans had not just survived biological warfare. They had turned it into a weapon that was now being used against Council forces throughout the sector. "They learn faster than we can adapt," he reported from his escape pod. "Every weapon we use against them becomes a weapon they use against us. Every tactic we employ becomes a tactic they improve upon. They are not just winning this war, they are rewriting the rules of warfare itself." Back on Earth, General Hayes reviewed the latest intelligence reports from across human space. Her forces now controlled not just the Sol system, but 3 adjacent star systems that had voluntarily joined the human coalition. More importantly, they had begun receiving volunteers from dozens of alien species who preferred human leadership to Council authority. "Ma'am," her aide reported, "we are receiving another communication from the Galactic Council. They are requesting negotiations." General Hayes smiled grimly. "Tell them we will consider their request. After they withdraw all forces from human space and formally recognize our territorial claims. And if they refuse, then we continue expanding our operations until they understand that this war will not end the way they expected." The Council's simple decision to conquer a primitive world had become their worst nightmare. The humans were no longer fighting for survival. They were fighting for victory, and they were winning. 2 years had passed since the Galactic Council made their simple decision to claim Earth. What should have been a routine pacification mission had become the greatest military disaster in Council history. The emergency session chamber buzzed with panic as representatives from across the galaxy gathered to address what they now called the human problem. Chancellor Thrix looked older than his 3,000 years as he called the session to order. The ancient leader had seen empires rise and fall, but he had never witnessed anything like the reports flooding in from human space. "The chair recognizes Admiral Corks of the Mandorian Shock Corps," he announced. Admiral Corks stood slowly, his massive frame bearing scars from a dozen major wars. The Mandorians were the Council's elite military force, warriors bred for combat across multiple worlds. His report would carry enormous weight. "Honored Council," Corks began, his deep voice filled with something no one had ever heard from a Mandorian before: uncertainty. "I regret to inform you that Operation Steel Fist has failed completely," gasps echoed through the chamber. Operation Steel Fist had been the Council's most ambitious military action in centuries. 3 full battle fleets, over 600 ships, led by the most experienced commanders in Council space. "Define failure," demanded Councillor Vrex, though her voice suggested she already knew the answer. "Total loss of Fleet 7, 60% casualties in Fleet 12. Fleet 5 retreated after suffering 40% losses in the first engagement." Admiral Corks paused, his warrior's composure cracking slightly. "The humans captured our flagship." The chamber fell silent. In 3,000 years of galactic warfare, no Council flagship had ever been captured by an enemy force. The very idea violated everything they understood about military possibility. "How?" Chancellor Thrix asked quietly. Admiral Corks activated a holographic display showing the battle. The images were taken from surviving Council ships, and they told a story that challenged everything the Council believed about warfare. "The humans did not fight like any enemy we have encountered," he said. "They used tactics that our military academies classify as impossible. Coordinated attacks by ships that should not have been able to communicate across such distances. Weapons combinations that should not have worked according to physics. Most disturbing, they seemed to know our battle plans before we implemented them." The hologram showed human ships moving with impossible coordination. Vessels that appeared to be standard human designs suddenly displayed alien weapons, alien shields, and alien propulsion systems. But they were not simply copying Council technology. They were improving it, combining systems from different species in ways that created entirely new capabilities. "They have integrated technology from at least 12 different Council species," Admiral Corks continued. "But they are not just using our equipment, they are making it better. Their hybrid designs outperform our purebred systems in every category. Counselor Keth of the Krillian swarms leaned forward. His once proud bearing had been broken by months of military disasters. What about the flagship? How did they take the eternal dominance? Admiral Corks's expression darkened. They used a tactic we call impossible. They weaponized gravity itself. The explanation that followed violated several fundamental principles of physics as the Council understood them. The humans had somehow created artificial gravity wells that could be deployed as weapons. They had used these gravity weapons to drag the massive flagship out of formation, disable its engines, and board it while it was helpless. The boarding action itself defied all military doctrine, Admiral Corks said. Human soldiers wearing powered armor that combined Krillian exoskeletons, scifi biological enhancements, and draconian energy shields. They fought with a ferocity that shocked even Mandorian veterans. Casualties among the flagship crew? Counselor Vrex asked. Minimal. The humans were not interested in killing the crew. They wanted prisoners for what they call intelligence gathering. A chill ran through the chamber. Everyone had heard rumors about human interrogation techniques. The few council personnel who had been recovered from human captivity refused to discuss their experiences, but their psychological profiles showed permanent trauma. Where is the eternal dominance now? Chancellor Thrix asked. Operating under human command in the Volf 359 system, Admiral Corks replied. Our intelligence indicates they have completely reverse-engineered its systems and are using it as a template for new ship designs. The Council's most advanced warship was now serving the enemy. Worse, it was being used to create an entire fleet of hybrid vessels that combine the best features of Council technology with human innovation. What about our other operations? Asked Treasurer Voth. Surely the humans cannot be everywhere at once. Admiral Corks turned to a new display showing the galactic sector map. Red zones marked areas under human control or influence. The pattern was terrifying in its scope and speed. Human forces now control 17 star systems, he reported. But control is the wrong word. These systems joined them voluntarily. The humans are not conquering territory. They are liberating it. The map showed human expansion in all directions from Earth, but this was not military conquest in any traditional sense. Human forces would arrive in a system, defeat, or drive off Council forces and then invite the local population to join what they called the Terran Coalition. Local populations are responding positively to human governance, Admiral Corks continued. Tax rates under human administration are significantly lower than Council standards. Species discrimination has been eliminated. Individual freedoms are protected regardless of biology or origin world. Propaganda, scoffed Counselor Zirith, though her voice lacked conviction. Perhaps, Admiral Corks agreed, but effective propaganda. Desertion rates in Council fleets have increased by 300%. Entire ships are defecting to human forces, bringing their crews and technology with them. The military situation was catastrophic, but the political implications were even worse. The human coalition was attracting members from across Council space. Species that had been subjugated for centuries were declaring independence and requesting human protection. What about their military capabilities? Asked Counselor Vrex. Surely they cannot match our industrial capacity. Admiral Corks laughed bitterly. They do not need to match our capacity. They exceed it. Human manufacturing combines automated systems with alien technology to produce equipment faster and cheaper than Council factories. A single human shipyard can outproduce an entire Council industrial world. The display showed images of human space infrastructure that made Council engineers weep. Massive shipyards built around asteroids, using alien technology to process raw materials at impossible speeds. Factory complexes that operated continuously, staffed by a combination of human workers and alien volunteers who had joined the coalition. They have also begun recruiting our own people, Admiral Cork said quietly, not through force or coercion, through opportunity. Human organizations offer better pay, better working conditions, and advancement based on merit rather than species. Hierarchy, traitors, Counselor Keth spat. Rational actors making economic decisions, Admiral Quarks corrected. The humans treat alien recruits as equals. They have Xerathi scientists, Draconian engineers, even Krillian warriors serving in their fleets. These individuals are not prisoners or slaves. They are full citizens of the coalition with all associated rights and benefits. The implications were staggering. The Council's power had always been based on species hierarchy and economic exploitation. The human model of equality and merit-based advancement threatened the fundamental structure of galactic civilization. What about their enhanced soldiers? Asked Counselor Vrex. Our reports mention human warriors with impossible capabilities. Admiral Quarks nodded grimly. They call them augmented Marines, human soldiers who have undergone biological and technological enhancement using technology from multiple Council species. They possess enhanced strength, improved reflexes, radiation resistance, and the ability to survive in hard vacuum. The display showed combat footage of these enhanced humans in action. They moved with inhuman speed and precision, their equipment seamlessly integrated with their enhanced biology. Most disturbing, they fought with a combination of tactical intelligence and absolute fearlessness that made them nearly unstoppable. A single augmented Marine squad can defeat a full Mandorian company, Admiral Quarks admitted. They do not just outfight our warriors, they outthink them. Their tactical flexibility and adaptability exceed anything in our military doctrine. How many of these enhanced soldiers do they have? Chancellor Thrix asked. Unknown. Our estimates range from 10,000 to over 1 million. They are extremely secretive about their enhancement programs, but recruitment appears to be voluntary and ongoing. The council chamber buzzed with worried conversations. 1 million enhanced human soldiers would be equivalent to 10 million standard council troops. Combined with their technological advantages and superior equipment, such a force could challenge the entire council military. What about their fleet capabilities? Treasurer Voth asked. Currently estimated at over 2,000 combat vessels, Admiral Quarks replied. But these numbers are misleading. Human ships are more capable than equivalent council vessels. Their hybrid technology allows individual ships to perform roles that would require entire council squadrons. The strategic picture was clear and terrifying. In 2 years, humanity had transformed from a primitive species with chemical rockets into a military power that could challenge the entire Galactic Council. They had done this not through conquest, but through rapid technological advancement and voluntary alliance building. What are our options? Chancellor Thrix asked. Admiral Quarks was quiet for a long moment. Military victory appears impossible with current resources. The humans learn faster than we can adapt. Every weapon we deploy against them becomes a weapon they use against us. Every tactic we employ becomes a tactic they improve upon. What about total warfare? Suggested Counselor Keth. Planetary bombardment, population elimination, complete system sterilization. Attempted last month, Admiral Quarks replied. The humans have developed planetary defense systems that can stop orbital bombardment. Moreover, any attack on civilian populations would likely trigger full human retaliation against Council worlds. Their current restraint appears to be based on our restraint. Then what do you recommend? Chancellor Thrix asked. Admiral Quarks straightened his shoulders and delivered the words that would change galactic history. Immediate ceasefire. Formal recognition of the Terran Coalition as a sovereign political entity. Negotiated withdrawal from all disputed territories. Full diplomatic relations. The chamber erupted in outrage. Councilors shouted demands for continued warfare, threats of personal combat, and accusations of cowardice. But beneath the noise, a cold realization was spreading through the assembly. They had lost. The simple decision to conquer a primitive world had resulted in the creation of a new galactic power that threatened the very existence of the Council itself. The humans are offering negotiations, Admiral Quarks said when the chamber quieted. They have proposed a peace conference on neutral territory. They are willing to discuss territorial boundaries, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. Why would they negotiate when they are winning? Asked Counselor Vrex. Because, Admiral Cork said quietly, they appear to prefer cooperation to conquest. They are not interested in destroying the Council, they want to reform it. The implications of that statement would haunt the Council for years to come. The humans were not just winning the war. They were offering to rebuild galactic civilization on principles of equality and mutual benefit. Chancellor Thrix looked around the chamber at his fellow counselors. Fear, anger, and desperate hope warred in their expressions. The simple decision that had started this disaster would require an equally simple decision to end it. Motion to accept human terms for peace negotiations, he said quietly. The vote was closer than it should have been, but the result was inevitable. The Galactic Council would negotiate with the species they had tried to conquer. The age of human dominance in galactic affairs was about to begin. The peace conference took place on Nexus Station, a neutral trading post that had operated for over 1,000 years without taking sides in galactic conflicts. The ancient station had seen many historic meetings, but nothing like what was about to unfold. Chancellor Thrix arrived with a delegation of 20 council representatives, each one carefully chosen to represent the major species and power blocks. They traveled in the fastest ships the council could provide, their journey taking 4 days through hyperspace. The humans arrived in 30 minutes. General Patricia Hayes stepped off a sleek vessel that combined human engineering with technology from a dozen alien species. Her ship had traveled the same distance in a fraction of the time, using what human scientists called quantum tunnel drives, a technology that had not existed before the war began. Chancellor Thrix, General Hayes said, extending her hand, in the human greeting gesture. Thank you for accepting our invitation to discuss terms. Thrix hesitated before taking the offered hand. The human woman appeared young by council standards, perhaps equivalent to a middle-aged Vorthan. But her eyes held the weight of command, and her bearing suggested someone who had seen considerable combat. General Hayes, he replied through his translator, I admit I am curious about your terms. Your forces have been quite successful in recent months. We prefer to think of it as helping our neighbors achieve self-determination, Hayes said with a slight smile. Please, shall we begin? The conference room was neutral territory in every sense. Plain walls, simple furniture, and recording equipment provided by the station's management. No flags, no symbols of authority, just two groups of beings trying to end a war that had spiraled far beyond anyone's expectations. Before we discuss territorial boundaries, Hayes began, I want to address a fundamental misunderstanding. The Terran Coalition did not seek this conflict. We responded to an unprovoked invasion of our sovereign territory. Your sovereignty was not recognized by the Council, Councillor Vrex pointed out. Under galactic law, unclaimed systems are available for territorial expansion. Under whose galactic law? Hayes asked politely. We were never consulted about these laws. We never agreed to Council authority over our system. From our perspective, you invaded our home without justification. The Council representatives exchanged glances. They had never considered that species might reject Council authority entirely. For thousands of years, the Council had assumed that their power was legitimate simply because it existed. That is an interesting philosophical position, Chancellor Thrix said carefully, but it does not address practical concerns. The galaxy requires order. Trade routes must be protected. Disputes must be resolved. The Council provides these services. Indeed, Hayes agreed. And we are prepared to discuss how these services might be provided more efficiently and fairly. She activated a holographic display showing star charts of the local galactic region. Red zones marked areas under Council control, blue zones showed Terran Coalition territory, and green zones indicated systems that had declared independence but not yet chosen sides. The current system is unsustainable, Hayes continued. 17 major species have declared independence from Council authority in the past year. 12 more are considering similar actions. Your tax revenues have dropped by 40%. Military costs have increased by 300%. The numbers were accurate, and every Council representative knew it. The war with humanity had triggered a galaxy-wide crisis of confidence in Council leadership. What do you propose? Asked Treasurer Voth, always focused on practical matters. A new model of galactic governance, Hayes replied. Voluntary association instead of imposed authority. Elected representation instead of hereditary positions. Equal rights regardless of species origin? Impossible, Councillor Keth declared. Some species are naturally better suited for leadership roles. The current system reflects biological reality. Hayes smiled, but there was no humor in her expression. Councillor Keth, your people tried to conquer us using that assumption. How did that work out? The Krillian representative had no answer. His species' military reputation had been shattered by human resistance. Worse, many Krillian warriors had defected to human forces, claiming they found human leadership more competent and fair. Let me be more specific, Hayes said, changing the display to show detailed proposals. The Terran Coalition is prepared to recognize continued Council authority over willing member systems. In exchange, the Council will recognize Terran Coalition sovereignty over our current territory and respect the independence of systems that choose to leave Council control. And if we refuse? Asked Admiral Corks. Then we continue our current expansion, Hayes said simply. Every month, more systems request protection from Coalition forces. Every month, more Council personnel defect to our cause. Every month, our technological and military advantages increase. The threat was delivered calmly, without anger or malice. That made it more frightening than any shouted declaration of war. You would conquer the entire galaxy? Chancellor Thrix asked. We would liberate it, Hayes corrected. But conquest would be the practical result, yes. We would prefer cooperation, but we will not allow continued oppression of species that seek freedom. The Council representatives huddled in private consultation. Their whispered conversations grew heated as the reality of their situation became clear. They could accept human terms, or they could face eventual complete defeat. What guarantee do we have that humans will honor these agreements? Councillor Vrex asked when they returned to the table. The same guarantee we have that you will honor them, Hayes replied. Mutual benefit and enlightened self-interest. The Coalition has no desire to rule species that do not wish our protection. We are prepared to sign mutual defense pacts, trade agreements, and cultural exchange programs with any Council systems that choose to remain independent. Admiral Corks leaned forward. And military cooperation? Welcomed, if desired, Hayes said. We face common challenges in unexplored galactic regions. Piracy, resource disputes, contact with unknown species. Cooperation serves everyone's interests. The negotiations continued for 3 days. The Council representatives fought for every concession, but their bargaining position was weak and everyone knew it. The final agreement reflected the new balance of power in the galaxy. The Treaty of Nexus Station established the Terran Coalition as a sovereign political entity with full diplomatic recognition. The Council retained authority over systems that chose to remain members but could not prevent peaceful secession. A joint commission would oversee territorial disputes and trade regulations. Most importantly, the treaty established the principle of voluntary association. No species could be forced to join or remain in any political organization against their will. This changes everything, Chancellor Thrix said as he signed the document. Thousands of years of galactic tradition ended in 3 years. Not ended? Hayes corrected. Evolved. The galaxy is changing, Chancellor. We can change with it or be left behind. The immediate aftermath of the treaty was dramatic. Within weeks, 37 star systems formally withdrew from Council authority and requested Coalition protection. Others remained with the Council but negotiated better terms for membership. The economic impact was equally significant. Coalition. Technology began appearing in Council markets, offering capabilities that had been considered impossible. Human-designed ships, weapons, and industrial equipment quickly became the most sought-after items in galactic trade. But the most profound changes were cultural. The human concept of equality based on individual merit rather than species hierarchy spread throughout Council space. Young beings from dozens of different worlds began demanding the same opportunities and freedoms that Coalition citizens enjoyed. 3 years after the signing of the Treaty of Nexus Station, General Hayes stood on the observation deck of the Terran Coalition flagship, watching construction of a new space station in the Volf 359 system. The station would serve as the Coalition's diplomatic and trade center, a symbol of humanity's place in galactic civilization. "Ma'am," her aide reported, "we are receiving another application for Coalition membership. The Draconian fleet wants to join as a full member species." Hayes smiled. The Draconian fleet had been one of the Council's most reliable military forces. Their decision to join the Coalition would effectively end the Council's ability to project military power. "Approved," she said. "Schedule integration conferences for next month. Also, we have a request from the Council for technical assistance with their new democratic reforms. They want human advisors to help design election systems for member worlds." Hayes nodded. The Council had been forced to adopt democratic reforms to prevent further defections. The irony was not lost on her that humanity was now helping to democratize the organization that had tried to conquer them. "Anything else?" she asked. "Long-range sensors have detected signals from the galactic core regions. Unknown technology, possibly a new species attempting first contact." Hayes felt a familiar excitement. Humanity's rapid expansion had brought them into contact with dozens of species, most of whom had become willing partners in exploration and trade. "Prepare a first contact team," she ordered. "Standard protocols. Peaceful approach, open communication. Offers of friendship and cooperation." As she watched the construction crews working on the new station, Hayes reflected on how much had changed since that day when alien ships first appeared in Earth's skies. Humanity had been faced with conquest, and had chosen resistance. That resistance had become liberation, not just for humans, but for species across the galaxy. The simple decision that the Galactic Council had made to invade Earth had indeed changed everything. But not in the way they had intended. Ambassador Zeth Prime sat in his small office on a minor council world, reviewing reports from across the galaxy. His career had been destroyed by the Earth Incident, as it was now called in official records. He had been demoted to managing trade disputes on agricultural worlds, but he was still curious about the species that had ruined his life. He pulled up the latest intelligence reports on human activities and found himself reading about Coalition exploration missions, scientific discoveries, and cultural exchanges with dozens of different species. The humans had become everything the Council claimed to be: protectors of peace, promoters of prosperity, and guardians of justice. They had achieved through cooperation what the Council had tried to maintain through force. Tate Prime closed the reports and looked out his window at the peaceful farming communities below. Even here on this forgotten world, he could see signs of human influence. Better farming equipment, improved communication systems, and most telling of all, young beings from multiple species working together as equals. The humans had won more than a war. They had won the future, and somewhere in the depths of space, human ships continued their expansion into the unknown, carrying with them the message that had reshaped galactic civilization, that all beings, regardless of origin, deserved freedom, dignity, and the chance to reach for the stars. The Council had thought they were invading a primitive world. Instead, they had awakened a force that would transform the galaxy forever.
The stars burned red in the darkness of space. Captain Thorne gripped the metal rail of his command bridge as another explosion shook his ship. Through the thick glass windows, he could see his world dying below. Corax Prime had been beautiful, once, green oceans and silver cities that sparkled in the light of twin suns. Now black smoke covered everything. The Vex ships hung in the sky like giant metal spiders, dropping fire on anything that moved. "Sir, the defense platforms are gone," said his communications officer. Her scaled hands shook as she spoke. "All 12 stations have been destroyed." Thorne closed his eyes for a moment. 12 massive defense platforms. Each one had cost billions to build. Each one had been called impossible to destroy. The Vex had wiped them out in less than an hour. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked. 7, sir, maybe 6 now. I lost contact with the Starfire 2 minutes ago. 7 ships against the Vex fleet. Thorn almost laughed, but there was nothing funny about watching your home burn. The Vex had brought over 300 warships to his system. Dark metal giants, with red lights that looked like angry eyes. He had heard the stories. Every species in the galaxy had heard them. The Vex came without warning. They destroyed everything that fought back. They enslaved everything that surrendered. For 300 years, they had been moving across the galaxy like a disease. First, they had taken the outer rim worlds, small colonies that nobody cared about. Then they had destroyed the Nexari Collective. The crystal beings had been peaceful traders for thousands of years. The Vex had turned their homeworlds into glass. After that came the Metal Lords of Titan, 7, ancient machines that had built cities in the hearts of dead stars. The Vex had ripped apart their star forges and melted down their bodies for scrap metal, world after world, species after species. The pattern never changed. The Vex would arrive with their massive fleets. They would demand surrender. If you said yes, they made you their slaves. If you said no, they killed everyone. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Vex flagship," the communications officer said. "Put it through." The main screen flickered and showed a face that gave Thorn nightmares. Admiral Kane of the Vex Empire looked almost human, but wrong in every way. His skin was pale gray. His eyes were solid black. Metal tubes ran from his skull into his uniform. "Captain Thorn of the Corax, Defense Fleet," Kane said. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. "Your pathetic resistance is over. Order your remaining ships to surrender." "Never," Thorn said. Kane smiled, showing teeth made of black metal. "I expected that answer. Your species has always been stubborn. It will make breaking you more interesting." The screen went dark. Thorn knew what would come next. The Vex would finish destroying his fleet. Then they would land troops on Corax Prime. The killing would go on for days. "Sir, the Moonbeam is requesting orders," his tactical officer said. Thorn looked at the battle display. 6 red dots showed his remaining ships. Around them, hundreds of green dots marked the Vex fleet. It was like watching insects try to fight, a forest fire. "Tell all ships to target the Vex troop carriers," he ordered. "If we're going to die, let's make it count." His ship shook again as Vex weapons hit the hull. Warning lights flashed red all around the bridge. The air tasted like burning metal and fear. Thorn watched his ships move into their final attack. The Moonbeam and the Starguard flew straight at the Vex formation. Their weapons fired streams of blue energy that looked like falling stars. A few Vex fighters exploded, but more took their place. The Corax ships were brave. Their crews were good soldiers, but bravery meant nothing against the Vex war machine. One by one, Thorn's fleet died. The Moonbeam lasted 3 minutes. The Starguard managed 4 before a Vex missile tore it in half. "Sir, we're the last ship," the communications officer said. Her voice was very quiet. Thorn nodded. He had known this moment would come. Every military leader in the galaxy knew how their story would end when the Vex arrived. You fought as long as you could. Then you died. But maybe death didn't have to be completely pointless. "Open all communication channels," he ordered. "Every frequency we have. Military, civilian, everything." "Sir?" "Do it." The communications officer's claws clicked on her control panel. "All channels open, sir." Thorn took a deep breath. His words would travel across space faster than light. Maybe someone would hear them. Maybe someone would care. "This is Captain Thorn of the Corax Defense Fleet," he said. "Our world is dying. Our people are dead, or will be soon. The Vex Empire has destroyed everything we built in 10,000 years. Another explosion. Pieces of his ship's hull flew past the windows. "To anyone listening," Thorn continued, "the Vex cannot be stopped by normal means. They have weapons we cannot match, ships we cannot destroy. They have conquered 80% of the galaxy." His tactical officer looked up from her station. "Sir, they're targeting our engines." "To anyone who still fights," Thorn said, speaking faster now. "You need something new, something they haven't seen before. The old ways of war don't work against them." A massive impact threw everyone to the floor. The lights went out for a moment, then came back dim and flickering. They fear nothing because nothing has ever hurt them, Thorne said. But everything that exists can be destroyed. Find a way. Find. The final missile hit the bridge directly. Captain Thorne's last transmission scattered across the galaxy in a burst of static and light. Far away, on the edge of known space, a small blue world received his message. The beings there had avoided contact with the greater galaxy. They seemed primitive and weak to the major powers, but they had been listening, and they had been preparing. Admiral Kane watched the last Korak ship explode from the bridge of his flagship, the Devastator. Another perfect victory. Another species added to the Empire's slave rolls. The few survivors on the planet below would serve the Vex for the rest of their short lives. Admiral, his communications officer said, "We intercepted the final transmission from their captain." What did he say? "A call for help, sir. Broadcast on all frequencies toward the outer rim." Kane laughed. "Let him call. There's nothing out there but empty space and dead worlds. The Vex Empire is unstoppable." He turned to look at the tactical display showing Vex territory. Red zones marked their conquered space. It covered most of the galaxy now. Soon, it would cover all of it. "Set course for the next system," Kane ordered. "The war continues." But in the darkness between stars, something had already begun to move. The UTS Defiance dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of what used to be Nexari territory. Captain Riley felt the ship's systems connect to her mind as Oracle's voice whispered through her enhanced neural links. "Arrival confirmed, Captain. We are in the Kepler 442 system. Long-range sensors detect debris fields and no life signs." Riley opened her eyes and looked at the main screen. Space around them was filled with the broken remains of crystal cities. The Nexari had built their homes on asteroids, growing beautiful structures that looked like frozen music. Now those structures were shattered glass floating in the dark. "How long ago?" she asked. "Based on radiation decay, approximately 6 months, Oracle replied. The attack was thorough. No survivors detected. Riley's enhanced mind processed the information quickly. 6 months meant the Vex had moved on to other targets. This system would be lightly defended, if at all. "Tactical, what do we have?" she called to her crew. Lieutenant Torres, her tactical officer, was also enhanced. His eyes glowed slightly blue as he linked to the ship's sensor array. 3 Vex patrol ships orbiting the 4th planet. Standard cruiser class. They're scanning the ruins for salvageable materials. "Perfect," Riley said. "Time to introduce ourselves." The Defiance moved deeper into the system. It was a beautiful ship in its own way, but not like the elegant vessels other species built. Human engineering focused on function over form. Every line of the ship was designed for war. "Captain," said Communications Officer Park, "we're receiving a transmission from the Vex patrol leader." "Let's hear it." The alien voice that came through the speakers sounded annoyed. "Unknown vessel, you are entering Vex territory without authorization. Identify yourself and state your business." Riley smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Open a channel." "Channel open, Captain." "This is Captain Riley of the United Terran Defense Force," she said. "I'm here to deliver a message." There was a pause. Then the Vex commander spoke again, this time with amusement in his voice. "Terran? We have no record of your species in our databases. Are you refugees from one of our recent conquests?" "No," Riley said. "We're something new. Whatever you are, you will surrender immediately. Resistance is futile. We are the Vex Empire." Riley looked at her crew. Enhanced humans at every station, their minds linked to the ship's systems. They had trained for this moment for years. "Oracle," she said quietly. "Tactical analysis. 3 Vex cruisers, each approximately 800 meters in length. Standard, plasma weapons and kinetic shields. Crew complement roughly 200 per ship. They are moving to surround us. Weaknesses? Their shield generators are positioned on the outer hull. Directed energy weapons could overload them with sufficient power. Their weapon systems have a 2-second charging cycle between shots." Riley nodded. 2 seconds was a lifetime in combat when you could think and react in milliseconds. "All hands prepare for combat," she announced. "This is what we trained for." The Vex ships moved into attack formation. They were confident. 3 ships against 1 was good odds, especially when dealing with an unknown species that probably had inferior technology. Commander Vex, leader of the patrol group, studied the human ship through his tactical display. It was larger than his cruisers but didn't look particularly impressive. Thick armor and lots of weapon ports, but nothing his ships couldn't handle. "Target their engines first," he ordered. "The Empire will want to study their technology before we destroy them." The first Vex ship fired a stream of superheated plasma. The energy beam lanced across space toward the Defiance's rear section. It never reached its target. Point defense systems along the human ship's hull activated faster than any organic eye could follow. Dozens of small turrets swiveled and fired, streams of coherent light. The plasma beam hit the defensive fire and scattered into harmless radiation. "What?" Commander Vex stared at his display. "How did they—" The Defiance's main weapons fired. Twin beams of concentrated energy hit the first Vex cruiser amidships. The alien shields flared bright blue, then overloaded and collapsed. The beams punched through the hull like it was made of paper. Secondary explosions rippled along the ship's length as power systems overloaded. The cruiser broke in half. Both pieces tumbled away, trailing atmosphere and debris. "Impossible," Commander Vex whispered. Riley felt Oracle's satisfaction through their neural link. The AI had calculated the exact frequency needed to overload Vex shields. Human technology had advantages the aliens couldn't imagine. 2 targets remaining, Torres reported. "They're trying to flank us." "Let them come," Riley said. The second Vex ship fired missiles. 12 plasma warheads streaked toward the Defiance at tremendous speed. Any normal ship would have been destroyed. The Defiance wasn't normal. Its point defense grid came alive. Hundreds of small lasers tracked the incoming missiles with perfect precision. Each warhead was intercepted and destroyed before getting within a kilometer of the human ship. The space around the Defiance lit up like a fireworks display. "Their defensive systems are incredible," Commander Vex said to his remaining ship. "Focus all fire on a single point. We have to overwhelm their—" The Defiance rotated and fired its secondary weapons. Kinetic rounds moving at 30% of light speed hit the second cruiser before the alien commander could finish his sentence. The projectiles passed through the ship's shields like they weren't there and punched massive holes in the hull. The cruiser's fusion reactor destabilized. It exploded in a ball of white-hot plasma that briefly outshone the system's star. Commander Vex was alone now. His remaining ship faced the human vessel in the wreckage of his patrol group. 2 ships destroyed in less than 3 minutes. His hands shook as he reached for the communication controls. "This is Commander Vex to all Vex forces," he transmitted. "Priority alert. Unknown hostile species has appeared in Sector 7. They possess advanced weapons technology. My patrol group has been destroyed. I am the only—" Riley had heard enough. "Oracle, jam his communications." "Communications jammed, Captain. Now end this." The Defiance's main cannon charged up. Energy readings spiked as the weapon drew power from the ship's fusion reactors. Commander Vex watched his sensors scream warnings about the energy buildup targeting his ship. "Please," he transmitted to the human vessel. "I surrender. My ship surrenders." Riley's voice came back cold and clear. The Nexari tried to surrender, too. "How did that work out for them?" The main cannon fired. The energy beam struck the Vex cruiser's bridge and continued through the entire length of the ship. The vessel split apart like a broken toy. Silence returned to the Kepler 442 system. The Defiance floated alone among the debris of 3 Vex warships and the ancient ruins of Nexari civilization. "Scan for survivors," Riley ordered. "No life signs detected," Torres reported. "All Vex vessels have been destroyed." Riley leaned back in her command chair. Her first combat action against the Vex had lasted exactly 12 minutes. 3 enemy ships eliminated with 0 damage to her own vessel. Oracle, analysis of Vex combat capabilities. Their technology is approximately 50 years behind current human military standards. the AI reported. Their tactics are designed to overwhelm weaker opponents through numbers and fear rather than technological superiority. What about their main fleets? Based on intercepted communications, their heavy warships are larger, but use the same basic technology. Estimated time to develop countermeasures: minimal. Riley smiled. The Vex Empire had conquered the galaxy by fighting species that hadn't prepared for war. They were bullies who had never faced a real opponent. Set course for the next Vex outpost, she ordered. Send a message to Admiral Beck. Tell him first contact was successful. The enemy is not as strong as they appear. Course plotted, Captain. Engaging hyperspace drive. As the Defiance jumped to its next target, the wreckage of the Vex patrol continued to drift in space. Soon, salvage crews would find the debris and try to understand what had destroyed 3 warships so easily. But by then, Captain Riley and her crew would be long gone, carrying their war deeper into Vex territory. The galaxy's bullies were about to learn what happened when they picked on someone who could fight back. The age of Vex terror was ending. The age of human vengeance had begun. The message reached Earth 3 days after Captain Thorne died. Admiral Beck sat in the underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains. The room was carved from solid rock and filled with screens showing data from across human space. Every wall displayed maps of star systems, ship positions, and resource reports. "Play it again," Beck said. The communication officer pressed a button. Captain Thorne's voice filled the room, broken by static but still clear enough to understand. His desperate words about the Vex Empire and their unstoppable advance made everyone listen in silence. "That's the 15th message we've received this month," said Colonel Hayes, Beck's second in command. "All saying the same thing. The Vex are coming, and no one can stop them." Beck nodded slowly. He was an old man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent 40 years preparing for this day. "How long before they reach our border?" "At their current speed, 6 months, Hayes replied. "Maybe less if they don't stop to enslave survivors." Beck stood up and walked to the largest screen. It showed the galaxy with different colors marking different territories. Red zones belonged to the Vex Empire. Blue zones were human space. The red was spreading like spilled blood across the stars. "Gentlemen," Beck said, "activate Project Titan." A door at the back of the room opened. Dr. Morgan walked in, carrying a metal briefcase that never left her side. She was younger than Beck, with sharp eyes and hands that moved quickly when she talked. "Are you sure, Admiral?" she asked. "Once we reveal Project Titan, there's no going back. The galaxy will know what humanity can do." "The galaxy is dying," Beck said. "If we wait any longer, there won't be anyone left to save." Dr. Morgan set her briefcase on the table and opened it. Inside were data chips containing humanity's greatest secret. For 70 years, while other species had focused on trade and politics, humans had been building weapons. "Show them," Beck ordered. Dr. Morgan activated a holographic projector. The air above the table shimmered and formed the image of a massive starship. It was 2 kilometers long and covered in weapon ports and armor plating. The design looked nothing like the pretty ships other species built for exploration and diplomacy. "The UTS Defiance," Dr. Morgan said. "Humanity's answer to the Vex Empire." Colonel Hayes whistled softly. "I've heard rumors, but seeing it—" "The ship has been under construction for 15 years, Dr. Morgan continued, hidden in the asteroid belt beyond Mars. We used mining operations as cover while our best engineers worked in secret." She touched in a control, and the hologram zoomed in to show different sections of the ship. Triple-layered armor made from metals we discovered in the outer planets, weapons powered by controlled fusion reactions, and an artificial intelligence system that can process information faster than any organic brain. "What about the crew?" Beck asked. 500 of our best people, Dr. Morgan said. All volunteers, all enhanced." The room went quiet. Everyone knew about the enhancement program. It was humanity's other secret project. Genetic improvements that made soldiers stronger, faster, and smarter than normal humans. Other species would call it playing God. Humans called it survival. "Enhanced how?" Hayes asked. "Improved reflexes, better hand-eye coordination, increased mental processing speed," Dr. Morgan explained. They can react to threats in milliseconds instead of seconds. They can calculate firing solutions while dodging enemy weapons. They think and move like machines, but they're still human where it counts. Beck walked around the hologram, studying every detail of the ship. What about weapons? Directed energy cannons that can punch through any known armor, Dr. Morgan said. Kinetic missiles that move at 30% of light speed. And something new, quantum torpedoes that phase through normal matter before exploding inside enemy. Ships, combat drones, 200 of them, each one controlled by an enhanced pilot using quantum link technology. The pilot's mind connects directly to the drone's systems. They can control multiple units simultaneously while staying safe inside the ship. Hayes shook his head. It sounds impossible. 20 years ago, faster-than-light travel sounded impossible, Dr. Morgan replied. Humans have always been good at making the impossible work. Beck stopped walking and looked at his officers. Who's commanding this ship? Captain Riley, Doctor. Morgan said. Veteran of the Mars colonial wars, enhanced reflexes and tactical intelligence. She's been training with the Defiance systems for 2 years. I know Riley, Beck said. Good soldier, smart commander. She'll need to be both to make this work. The hologram changed to show the ship's bridge. It looked like the inside of a computer, rather than a normal command center. Screens covered every surface. Control interfaces glowed with blue light. At the center sat a command chair connected to dozens of cables and sensors. The captain links directly to the ship's AI during combat, Dr. Morgan explained. She can see what every sensor sees, control every weapon system, coordinate every drone pilot. The ship becomes an extension of her mind. That sounds dangerous, Hayes said. Everything about this mission is dangerous, Beck replied. But it's our only chance. Dr. Morgan closed the hologram and packed her briefcase. The Defiance finished its final tests yesterday. All systems are operational. The crew is ready for launch. Beck walked to a secure communication terminal in the corner of the room. His hand hovered over the activation key. Once he pressed it, everything would change. Humanity would leave its hiding place and enter the galactic war. Admiral, Hayes said quietly, are we ready for this? We've spent centuries avoiding contact with alien species. Now we're going to fight their war. It's not their war anymore, Beck said. The Vex won't stop with alien worlds. They'll come for us next. Better to fight them now while we still have allies left in the galaxy. He pressed the activation key. Alarms began sounding throughout the underground base. Red lights flashed as the facility switched to war mode. All across human space, similar alarms were sounding in hidden bases and secret shipyards. Send the activation codes to Captain Riley, Beck ordered. Tell her she has full authority to engage the enemy at her discretion. What about the other species? Hayes asked. Should we warn them that we're coming? Beck smiled for the first time in days. Let it be a surprise. The Vex have been terrorizing the galaxy for 3 centuries. Time for them to learn what terror really means. Far from Earth, in the cold darkness of the asteroid belt, the UTS Defiance began powering up its engines. Captain Riley sat in the command chair as cables connected to her enhanced nervous system. Around her, 500 of humanity's finest, warriors prepared for a war that would decide the fate of the galaxy. The ship's AI, Oracle, spoke in a voice that sounded almost human. All systems ready, Captain. Course plotted for Vex territory. Take us out, Oracle, Riley said. It's time to end this war. The Defiance moved from its hiding place among the asteroids. Its engines glowed like small stars as the massive ship accelerated toward enemy space. Behind it, the lights of Earth grew smaller until they disappeared completely. Humanity was no longer hiding. The real war was about to begin. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Devastator, reading reports that made no sense. 3 patrol ships destroyed, no survivors, no distress calls, just wreckage and empty space where his forces used to be. Show me the debris analysis again, he ordered. His science officer, a pale creature with metal implants covering half his face, activated the holographic display. The damage patterns are unlike anything in our databases, Admiral. The hull breaches were caused by directed energy weapons of unknown design. The precision is disturbing. Kane studied the floating images of twisted metal and burned circuits. What species did this? They called themselves Terrans, sir. We have no records of this species in our conquered territories. Then find them, Kane snarled. Deploy Squadron 7 to investigate. 12 heavy cruisers should be enough to handle whatever destroyed our patrol. Yes, sir. Squadron 7 is already moving to intercept. Kane turned to look out at the stars. In 300 years of conquest, no single ship had ever defeated multiple Vex vessels. Whatever these Terrans were, they would learn the same lesson as every other species. Resistance was futile. Captain Riley felt the Defiance drop out of hyperspace near the industrial world of Forge Prime. The planet had once belonged to a species called the Builders. Now it was a Vex slave camp, mining rare metals for the Empire's war machine. Sensor sweep complete, reported Lieutenant Torres. 12 Vex heavy cruisers moving to intercept. They're in tight formation. Riley's enhanced eyes studied the tactical display. The Vex ships were each over a kilometer long, bristling with weapons and thick armor. In a normal battle, any one of them could destroy a dozen smaller vessels. Oracle, what do you think? Analysis indicates the enemy is taking us seriously this time. The AI replied through their neural link. Larger ships, better coordination, more firepower, they are adapting. Good. Time to show them why that won't help. Riley activated the ship's intercom. All drone pilots prepare for launch. This is what we trained for. Deep inside the Defiance, 200 enhanced humans sat in chairs that looked like electronic cocoons. Cables connected their minds directly to combat drones stored in the ship's launch bays. Each pilot could control multiple drones simultaneously, their enhanced reflexes allowing them to fight battles at speeds no normal person could match. Drone bay doors opening, announced Pilot Marcus, the squadron leader. All units ready for launch. Launch when ready, Riley ordered. The Defiance's hull split open in dozens of places. Combat drones poured out like angry wasps from a disturbed nest. Each drone was small and fast, armed with weapons that could destroy ships 10 times their size. Commander Voss, leading Squadron 7, watched the human ship release its drone swarm. What are those things? Unknown combat units, his tactical officer replied. 200 separate contacts, they're moving in perfect coordination. Fighters, Voss decided. Target the carrier ship. Once we destroy their base, the fighters will be helpless. He was wrong. The drone swarm split into multiple groups, each moving with impossible precision. They didn't attack like normal fighters, trying to overwhelm enemy defenses through numbers. Instead, they moved like pieces of a single mind, anticipating each other's movements and coordinating attacks with perfect timing. Incoming missiles from the Vex formation, Torres reported. Riley smiled. Point defense active. Drone squadron, you are clear to engage. The Vex heavy cruisers fired hundreds of missiles at the human ship. The projectiles streaked through space like falling stars, each one capable of destroying a city. They never reached their target. The drone swarm moved between the missiles and the Defiance. Each small craft fired precisely timed laser bursts, detonating the incoming warheads in cascades of light. The missiles died in beautiful explosions that lit up the darkness. Impossible, Commander Voss whispered. How are they coordinating like that? He got his answer when the drones began their attack run. Each group of drones targeted a different Vex cruiser. They moved in patterns that seemed random, but were actually calculated by Oracle's massive processing power. The AI fed tactical data directly into each pilot's mind, creating a hive mind effect that no Vex computer could match. The first cruiser died in seconds. Drones swarmed around it like hungry sharks, their weapons targeting specific weak points in the ship's armor. They didn't waste shots on heavily defended areas. Instead, they hit weapon batteries, engine pods, and shield generators with surgical precision. The Vex ship's defenses collapsed. Its main reactor went critical. The explosion took out 2 nearby cruisers that were trying to help. 3 ships down, Pilot Marcus reported, his voice excited. Moving to target 4. Commander Voss watched his squadron die around him. His ships were firing everything they had, But the human drones were too fast and too smart. They dodged incoming fire like they could see the future. "All ships focus fire on the drones," he ordered. "Ignore the carrier." Another mistake. While the Vex concentrated on the drone swarm, the Defiance moved into optimal firing position. Its main weapons charged up, drawing power from the ship's massive fusion reactors. Riley felt Oracle's satisfaction through their neural link. "Perfect positioning achieved, Captain. All targets in optimal firing arc." Fire. The Defiance's main batteries spoke with the voice of concentrated Starlight. Energy beams lanced out, at light speed hitting 3 Vex cruisers simultaneously. The alien ship's shields overloaded instantly. Their armor turned to plasma. Their hulls split open like ripe fruit. "This is impossible," Commander Voss screamed into his communicator. "How is one ship destroying my entire squadron?" Riley's voice came back calm and cold. "You've been fighting frightened civilians for 3 centuries. We're soldiers." The battle continued for another 10 minutes. It wasn't really a battle anymore. It was an execution. The human drones moved through the Vex formation like ghosts, striking wherever the enemy was weakest. The Defiance's main guns fired again and again, each shot claiming another cruiser. The Vex return fire was wild and desperate, hitting nothing but empty space. Commander Voss found himself alone, his flagship surrounded by the wreckage of 11 other ships. His hand shook as he reached for the communication controls. "This is Commander Voss to Admiral Kane," he transmitted. "Priority emergency. The Terrans. They're not like the other species. They fight like us. But better. Much better. Explain yourself." Kane's voice crackled back. "They have technology we've never seen. Tactics we can't counter. My entire squadron is gone. 12 heavy cruisers destroyed by a single enemy ship." Silence on the channel. Then Kane's voice, very quiet. "One ship?" "Yes, sir. One ship and its drone fighters. Admiral, we need to rethink our strategy. These Terrans are..." The transmission cut off as the Defiance's main cannon reduced Voss's flagship to glowing debris. Riley leaned back in her command chair, feeling the adrenaline of battle fade from her enhanced system. Around her, the bridge crew was already preparing for the next engagement. "Damage report," she ordered. "Minor scoring on the outer hull," Torres replied. "No significant damage. All systems operating at full capacity." "Drone losses?" 3 units destroyed, 7 damaged, Pilot Marcus reported. "Repairs underway." Riley nodded. 12 Vex heavy cruisers destroyed, and they had lost 3 small drones. The mathematics of this war were very much in humanity's favor. Oracle, scan for Vex communication traffic. "Multiple emergency transmissions detected," the AI reported. "The enemy appears to be confused. Many ships are requesting new orders. Some are abandoning their patrol routes." "Fear," Riley said with satisfaction. "They're finally afraid." For 3 centuries, fear had been the Vex Empire's greatest weapon. They conquered through terror, making species surrender rather than face their military might. Now that fear was turning against them. On occupied worlds throughout Vex space, slaves heard whispered stories about a ghost ship that appeared from nowhere and destroyed entire squadrons. Resistance groups began sabotaging Vex installations, inspired by tales of the mysterious Terrans who could actually fight the Empire and win. "Set course for the next target," Riley ordered. "Send another message to Admiral Beck. Tell him the enemy is beginning to fracture. Fear is spreading through their ranks." "Message sent, Captain." Course plotted for the Xerion system. As the Defiance jumped to hyperspace, its crew prepared for the next battle. Each engagement brought them closer to the heart of the Vex Empire, and each victory spread more terror through enemy ranks. The hunters had become the hunted. The galaxy's greatest predators were learning what it felt like to be prey, and Captain Riley was just getting started. Admiral Kane stood in the war room of his flagship, surrounded by holographic displays showing the collapse of his empire. Red zones on the galactic map were turning gray as his forces abandoned their positions. Fear had spread like a virus through the Vex military. "How many ships have we lost to this single Terran vessel?" he asked. His aide, General Nex, checked his datapad with shaking hands. 47 warships in the past month, sir, including 3 of our best squadron commanders. Kane slammed his fist on the table. One ship? How is one ship destroying my entire fleet? The reports are consistent, Admiral. They fight unlike any species we've encountered. Their technology is superior to ours. Their tactics are perfect. Kane looked at the tactical display showing his home system, Vex Prime. Over 3,000 ships surrounded the planet, the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. Every available warship had been recalled for the final battle. Let them come, Kane said. I don't care how advanced they are. No single ship can face 3,000. He was about to learn how wrong he could be. Captain Riley sat in her command chair as the Defiance dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Vex home system. Through her neural link with Oracle, she could sense the massive enemy fleet waiting for them. Tactical analysis, she said quietly. Oracle's voice whispered in her mind. 3,047 Vex vessels detected. Multiple ship classes from escort frigates to heavy dreadnoughts. They have formed a defensive sphere around their homeworld. Riley smiled. After months of hit-and-run attacks, the Vex had finally gathered their entire fleet in one place. Perfect. Communications. Open a channel to the Vex flagship. Channel. Open, Captain. Riley's voice carried across the void to Admiral Kane's bridge. Admiral Kane of the Vex Empire. I am Captain Riley of the Terran Defense Force. You have one chance to surrender. Kane's reply came back filled with rage. Surrender. You face the might of 3,000 warships. You are outnumbered beyond counting. Numbers don't matter when you're fighting the wrong war, Riley said. You've spent 3 centuries terrorizing civilians. We've spent the same time learning how to kill. Kane cut the transmission and turned to his fleet commanders. All ships, attack formation. Destroy that ship. Show the galaxy that the Vex Empire cannot be defeated. The massive fleet began to move. 3,000 ships advancing like a wall of metal and death. Any normal commander would have retreated. Any sane person would have run. Riley gave the order that ended an empire. Oracle, activate Protocol 7. The Defiance began to change. Sections of the ship's hull split apart like flower petals opening. Hidden bays revealed themselves, each one containing a smaller vessel. The single ship became 10, then 20, then 50 separate craft, each one crewed by enhanced humans and armed with humanity's most advanced weapons. What is this? Kane whispered, watching his tactical display fill with new contacts. Riley's voice came through the communication channel, now speaking from multiple ships simultaneously. You wanted to see our full strength, Admiral. Here it is. The Terran, fleet spread out in perfect formation. Each ship moved with the same precision as the drones, guided by Oracle's tactical intelligence and crewed by humans whose enhanced minds could process information at superhuman speeds. All ships, engage the enemy, Riley commanded. What followed was not a battle. It was a masterpiece of military destruction. The Terran ships moved through the Vex formation like surgeons with scalpels. They didn't waste shots or attack randomly. Every weapon fired at a specific target for a specific purpose. Every maneuver was calculated to maximize damage while minimizing risk. The Vex ships were large and powerful, but they were also slow and predictable. Their commanders had spent centuries fighting frightened civilians who barely fought back. They had no experience with opponents who could think faster, move quicker, and coordinate better than any force in the galaxy. The first 100 Vex ships died in the opening minutes. Terran energy weapons punched through their shields like paper. Quantum torpedoes phased through their armor and exploded inside their hulls. Kinetic rounds moving at impossible speeds simply erased entire sections of enemy vessels. Focus fire. On their command ships, Kane ordered desperately, take out their leaders. But there were no weak points in the Terran formation. Every ship was commanded by an enhanced human linked to Oracle's network. If one ship was destroyed, the others immediately compensated. The fleet fought as a single organism with 50 heads. Admiral. Kane watched his carefully planned defense crumble in real time. His ships were dying faster than his computers could count. The space around Vex Prime filled with debris and burning atmosphere from destroyed vessels. Sir, we've lost 800 ships, General Nex reported, The outer defensive line has collapsed. Then fall back to the inner perimeter. Use the planet's defense platforms. The surviving Vex ships retreated toward their homeworld, seeking shelter behind massive orbital weapons platforms. The platforms were each the size of cities, armed with cannons that could destroy moons. Riley watched the enemy withdrawal through Oracle's sensors. Target the defense platforms first. Clear the way to their flagship. The Terran fleet's main guns charged up simultaneously. 50 ships fired as one, their combined energy output rivaling a small star. The orbital platforms didn't just explode, they were vaporized, turned into clouds of superheated gas in milliseconds. Kane's flagship, the Devastator, found itself alone and exposed. Around it, the burning hulks of 3,000 ships drifted in the darkness. The most powerful fleet in galactic history had been destroyed in less than 2 hours. "This is impossible," Kane said, his voice barely a whisper. Riley's ship approached the damaged flagship. Her voice came through the communication system one final time. "You asked what we are, Admiral. We are what happens when a peaceful species decides to embrace war. We are what you created when you terrorized the galaxy for 3 centuries. Kane looked up at his tactical display, where a single Terran ship was targeting his bridge. "Please, my ship surrenders. I surrender." The Corax tried to surrender, Riley said. The Nexari tried to surrender. How did that work out for them? The energy beam that destroyed Kane's flagship could be seen from the surface of Vex Prime. The explosion marked the end of 300 years of galactic terror. Riley stood on the bridge of the Defiance as her fleet regrouped around the conquered world. Below them, Vex Prime burned as liberation forces freed billions of slaves. Across the galaxy, the news was spreading. The Vex Empire was dead. "Captain," Lieutenant Torres reported, "we're receiving surrender transmissions from Vex forces throughout the galaxy. Most of their remaining ships are abandoning their positions." "Let them run," Riley said. "The war is over," Oracle's voice whispered in her mind. "Congratulations, Captain. Total Vex casualties, 97% of their military forces. Terran casualties, minimal." Riley nodded. The mathematics had been in humanity's favor from the beginning. The Vex had ruled through fear and superior numbers. When they faced an enemy with superior technology and training, their empire collapsed like a house of cards. "Send a message to Admiral Beck," she ordered. "Tell him the galaxy is free. The Vex Empire is finished." 3 months later, Riley stood in the observation deck of Terra Station, humanity's first embassy to the galactic community. Through the transparent walls, she could see ships from dozens of species arriving for the first Galactic Peace Conference. The freed species wanted to honor humanity as their saviors. They offered trade agreements, technology exchanges, and military alliances. Some even wanted to worship humans as gods of war. Riley had turned down most of the offers. Humanity had revealed its strength to save the galaxy, but they didn't want to rule it. They had learned the lesson of the Vex Empire. Power, without restraint, led to corruption and destruction. "Captain," Oracle said through the station's communication system, "Admiral Beck is requesting your presence at the peace negotiations. Tell him I'll be there in a moment." Riley looked out at the stars one more time. The galaxy was safe now, but she knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had stepped onto the galactic stage and there would be new challenges ahead. But for now, for the first time in 3 centuries, the galaxy was at peace. Children on 1,000 worlds could sleep without fear. The age of terror was over, and if anyone else decided to threaten that peace, they would learn the same lesson as the Vex Empire. Humanity was done hiding. They had shown the galaxy what they could do when forced to fight. They hoped they would never have to do it again, but they were ready if they did.